Good afternoon, all. My name is Avni Mustafaj. I'm the president of the National Albanian American Council. We just had a brief meeting with President Clinton, Sandy Berger, and with Jim Steinberg and their staff. We, of course, thanked the U.S. government, particularly Bill Clinton and NATO, for their efforts in trying to save the lives of the people in Kosovo. As you all know, as has been recorded and indicated by the German government and by the British, that in Kosovo today we have genocide. As of yesterday, 200,000 people had crossed the borders. They are rounding up the civilian population, and in particular teachers, doctors, lawyers, and executing them. As you also know, one member of the Rambouillet signatories was executed, and we don't know where the rest of them are. We particularly addressed our concerns about the fact that on the ground, people in Kosovo are still, in fact, being killed. We urge the administration to do everything they can with respect to getting troops on the ground, with respect to possibly arming the KLA. So our number one concern as of right now is to provide safety and protect the lives of those that are being killed in Kosovo. The administration did mention that they have put aside $75 million humanitarian aid for the refugees, and that there is a big donors conference coming up in which they are spearheading. We also expressed grave concern that Milosevic's goal here was not only to wipe out the population outside of Kosovo, but then at some point to try and partition Kosovo. And we received assurance, and I quote, the president said that Milosevic will not win, and that the government stands firmly behind creating an environment for the people of Kosovo to determine their own future. At this point, I'll take any questions.
What was the reaction of the administration, specifically the president, to your suggestion that there be ground troops or arming of the KLA?
Well, there are, of course, complications that were mentioned to us with respect to the fact that there is still a grave concern to keep all of the allies together. We did not get the sense as though this was something that was going to be done in the immediate future. We also expressed concerns about getting NATO troops on the ground, and we also were led to believe that that may take a while.
To answer your question, David, they did not rule out either one of those options. And the president, at the beginning of his discussion with us, said, we cannot lose this. We have to win this. And he, from what we could tell, is determined to win and not let Milosevic ethnically cleanse Kosovo.
We were also encouraged by the fact that the White House did assure us that they have been on the telephone on a daily basis with the contact group, and all of those countries have maintained that they're still resolute in carrying this thing through, that there has been no break off from the contact group's commitment to seeing this thing through. In fact, they also mentioned that the Italians and the Germans had been particularly more aggressive recently.
The administration is saying that Milosevic can still embrace Rambouillet, but do you think the agreement's dead? Do you still think that that's a workable agreement?
Well, I think that 15 leaders from Kosovo were sent to Rambouillet to sign that agreement, and ultimately they're the ones who have to make that decision. As of right now, we were assured that there is no other discussion on the table other than Milosevic embracing Rambouillet.
Can Kosovo then, after all that's happened in the last couple of weeks especially, can Kosovo go back to being a province of Yugoslavia?
We do not believe that you can ask people who have been victims of an ongoing repression and most recently of genocide to now have to go back to live in an occupied territory by the Serbian government. Our feeling is that in long-term solution, the only just and the only way democracy will flourish in that region is if Kosovo has its independence.
Independence, not just autonomy.
That's correct.
We've always thought that independence was inevitable, and by the actions of the last week, we think that that's more reality than autonomy.
One of the concerns that's been expressed is that Milosevic might finish his campaign of quote-unquote ethnic cleansing long before the bombing is able to stop him from doing so. How much time more on the ground do you think it might take him to finish what he's done before the bombing might even make a difference?
Well, I don't think any of us have that kind of information, but you hit specifically on the head as to what our concerns are also, is that while we understand that military targets have to be taken out, and we do understand that missile targets have to be taken out, that ultimately the success of this mission will be to protect the people on the ground.
Do you have any reason to believe that the military campaign at this point has in any way slowed down the atrocities or the genocide?
Well, I think we all believe that the atrocities were going to happen. I think as soon as those 40,000 troops were sent into Kosovo, I think everybody recognized that what happened in Bosnia was now going to happen. Do we think that it has slowed down the troops? To this point, it doesn't look like it has slowed down the troops. The message that we've been getting is that if we stay the course, that in the very near future, it will not only slow them down, but it will stop them.
Did the president have any other words of encouragement or sympathy for the plight of the refugees?
Well, that was, quite honestly, that was his biggest concern at this moment, was the fact that there are people on the ground that are still being killed, and those refugees, and they have set up an upcoming donor conference to make sure that those people are provided for. We also insisted that provisions be made now to ensure that these people be allowed to return home, and they agreed that that would be done also.
And the other message we gave the president, which we want to share with you, is despite what Milosevic has done over the last week, that he has not broken the will of the Albanian people to live free, to be independent, and most importantly, to return home. And that's very important to remember here.
So you said that the president did not rule out the possibility of sending ground troops. What indications did he give you of that's a possibility, that's on the table at all?
Well, we had a conversation with him, and part of our message to the president was that we support the president and we support NATO's actions in Kosovo, but that we think that the actions thus far have not been successful in stopping the genocide, and we urged that they take the next steps, arming the KLA and also sending in ground troops. Now, we had that conversation with Jim Steinberg and the president. What Jim Steinberg said is that this is a difficult thing to do at this point, and we're focused on the immediate goal at hand. The president echoed what he said, but his concern, as Avni stated, was at this point stopping the genocide, stopping Milosevic, winning this thing, and returning people to their homes. He did not expressly rule out any of the two suggestions we gave him. Jim Steinberg made it clear that those were not ruled out.
We also want to make clear that while we did get that response, we are still not satisfied with the fact that the people on the ground still need to be protected.
Do you believe it's possible to stop the killing without arming the KLA, without ground troops?
I think that there are some awfully intelligent NATO commanders, and they have some remarkably sophisticated equipment, as we all have now had an opportunity to watch on the various programs. But based on listening to military experts who seem to know this stuff, until they get troops on the ground, there's no way of quote-unquote stopping them. And so I think what they can do from the air, it sounds, is slow them down. But ultimately, if they're going to stop them, it has to be done from the ground. And whether that's a combination of NATO troops and arming the KLA, those are things that people on the upper levels of the military aspect will have to decide.
And since you're in touch with people who are still in Kosovo, Can you give us some indication as to what the mood is of the Kosovars who you're speaking to now? I mean, are things worse than they were a couple days ago, better for them? And what's going on the ground there?
Well, the big difference is that 2 days ago we feared that there was genocide. We feared that there were a lot of people that had been displaced, and yesterday we found out that all of that stuff is true. We do know the genocide is happening. We do know that people are being summarily, particularly the professionals, are being summarily rounded up and executed, and that people are being rushed out of Albania. So all of the fears and all the speculations based on the fact that there were no journalists on the ground have at this point been confirmed. So we know that these atrocities are in fact occurring.
And part of what we're hearing, David, from people here is as they call back to their homes in Kosovo, instead of getting their family members, they're getting Serb soldiers. And in one particular instance, someone called us who was outraged and crying on the phone to say that she just got a Serb soldier who described in details the atrocities he committed on her family.
Yeah, and
so that's part of what we're hearing is that Kosovo is being devastated and that the Serbs have wiped out entire cities and are moving into people's homes as well.
also, those people on the ground have also made it very clear that they do believe that these atrocities would have been committed even if NATO had not gone on the ground. And as a couple of people have said on the phone, if they're going to die, they would at least like to know that they are dying trying for freedom as opposed to just being slaughtered.
Another concern that we asked the president, as you know, hundreds of thousands dismissed refugees. The Serb police take their documents, they burn them, and this is a big concern to us. And hoping that someday they're gonna go back to their homes. And you know that.
What were you going to say?
I just wanted to point one thing, that people of Kosovo, they're supporting the bombing. They're supporting United States and NATO, what it's doing, because this was going to happen. The atrocities were going to happen. Our community, the Kosovar American community, supports the president, support the leadership that the United States has taken, and we're hoping that the air campaign will bring an end to this, and we had a commitment from the president that he will continue to keep the metal to the pedal in bombing.
There are reports today that two prominent leaders that we thought had been executed may in fact be alive. Do you have any information on their status, Mr. Agani and Hachuri?
Who?
Femi Agani.
Right? And who's the other one? Baton Hajiu. As of today, I don't know if anybody else has heard anything to the contrary, but I did note yesterday, I believe it was the BBC that reported that Femi Agani, Ilir Zherka, and Baton Hajiu had in fact been executed. Now, if that has changed today, then I don't have any information on it yet.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very
gentlemen.
much.
Thank you,
Thank
ladies
you.
and gentlemen.
Can I have one of those, sir?
Yeah, but I don't need to. What's his name?